a couple schools down in like Utah County Draper got to that, like they got to a dozen. Right. So yeah, no, it's a good question. For us, no, though, it shouldn't be.
Good question. In fact, I'll give you guys some points for that question.
What are we doing today?
Orion asked, we're going to start our new section on the presidency. Yay, Sophie's excited.
I'm still confused on like what we learned before the last test.
So well, on that note, if I could have your help, actually, Kennedy, if you wouldn't mind, making sure that everybody gets this section.
You don't know.
No, just to hand that out. That is just one page for the new section of notes on the presidency, on Article 2 in the executive. But I do like Kennedy's thought about the last. Yeah. I mean, because I think that's fair. The last part we sort of got through rather quickly there on the modes of representation. So as she's passing this out, let's just clarify. Let's mention a couple things. For some points for your class, who are Rob Bishop's constituents?
We are.
We as in who?
District 1, Northern Utah.
You got it. So basically from like Bountiful up to Cove, or whatever the farthest north, Lewiston.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Yes, absolutely. Very good. Who are the constituents for Senator Lee? Mike Lee, one of our two senators.
Utah.
Yep. Yeah. Even though like Mitt Romney and Lee like are the two for the state, it's not like they split it where Hunter half is with Lee and half is with Romney. It's just the dual representations for both. Yes, for the whole state. Even though maybe they aren't supposed to exactly represent the people anyway, they are, the constituents are in general everybody for Utah. Who are the constituents for? Thank you very much, Kim.
Did everybody get one? I think they did.
Lucas is coming, I think. He's applying for USU right now.
Oh yes, because they sort of shoehorn the college things, and thank you, Kennedy, into these lunch hours. Because normally they have you guys as seniors go and like do like a half-day assembly, or like where you would shift around to different pods.
That would be so nice.
Would be nice.
But I think this year, Maisie, yeah, like Livy was asking this too. I think COVID has made it where the schools don't want to endorse that much activity. The colleges are petrified of legal liability things. That's my thought.
You had their Zoom person.
Yeah, there it is. They are, like, the universities are petrified, not just for the volleyball thing and not actually hosting for UVU. Schools don't want to touch it at all. Like, they don't want to do it. So I think maybe that's probably why. Even though it's more convenient for you guys to have like a nice sort of schedule rotation. Anywho, hopefully we'll see Lucas here soon. So constituents are that. Who are the president's constituents?
The citizens of the United States of America.
Yeah, but wait a second. I didn't vote for Ronald Reagan. He's not my president. Let's say hashtag, let's be agents. Hashtag not my president. Is that accurate? No, because whether you voted for that person or not, they are still your president, and it works the other way, Trey, where that president is still responsible to those individuals, whether they voted for him or not. So constituents, or whether they voted or not, that's there, and it's also tied to the district or locale that they're over. So we got to keep that straight. Again, Mia Love or McAdams or whoever, for Southern Salt Lake, they're not tied to us, so we are not their constituents. Okay, good stuff there. Yes, Esther.
So, you know how like when we go to the U.S. territory?
Yes.
Do you have to have them for consent?
Sorry, say that one more time.
It's like Puerto Rico, like I'm a citizen of Puerto Rico, it's a constituent of the U.S. president.
No. Namely because DC, this is what's weird, DC doesn't get any voting representation within the House, but DC does get electoral votes, right? So citizens of DC are constituents of the presidency, but those individuals who are usually considered voting they're going to be considered constituents. Residents of Guam, residents of Puerto Rico are not considered constituents. They're considered residents of U.S. territories. I know it's parsing. I really like the question, where the president has an obligation to them, but not in the same way because they're not getting the voting power there, so there isn't this constituency relationship. It's almost like an in-between spot. Does the president care about the residents of Canada?
No, not really, as long as they don't screw us up.
Right, but is there some obligation maybe morally to like make sure relationships are good within the Canadian-U.S. border? Sort of, right? So then you take one step further. Is the president responsible for the residents of Puerto Rico? Yeah, a little bit more than they were for Canada, right? Because it is a territory of the U.S. But the relationship as a constituency where the president's like, I've been given a mandate from the people to do a certain thing, that's not going to be accurate for Puerto Rico because they're not true constituents. All right? Does that subtle distinction? It's like the inner circle, like, yes, U.S. resident, boom. Territory resident, yeah. And other foreign country, not really, but we sort of are trying to be helpful so that we keep relations good. Yeah, good question. Okay,
Why does Trump care about keeping relations good, though?
and I think, Sam, you mentioned this before, the populist angle, right, of like doing things that get votes for him. I think you can make the claim that the recent things of him doing trade deals with UAE and Israel is an attempt to make relationships good, maybe not so, Tyler, for his own sake, but to get elected, right? I mean, that doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's strategical. Yeah, Sarah?
Can I get a...
Yes.
And it's just a different take than we've seen since we've seen.
Yes.
Because Obama didn't really do that very often. Like, he didn't make these huge tweets, huge
Yes,
controversial tweets.
that's a great way to say it. He was more low-key with things, and one angle is whether you're Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, mainstream media is definitely more they're favoring traditional liberal or Democratic candidates. They do. And so he could like play it low-key and let others do like the dirty work for him. Trump's grandiose moves are a little more intense. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Okay, in 1791, when the Bill of Rights was ratified, and Samuel, we had our Constitution as we saw fit then. Was the House delegates or trustees? For some points, I might make that connection. Because we wrote that down right at the end, Kennedy, this is to help out, right at the end of those Congress notes. The House of Representatives, were they delegates or trustees, Sammy?
Were they trustees because they were more tall?
I like the idea of like maybe they were more wise back in the day. That's not the case.
Delegates.
They were, yes, 50-50. They were delegates, yes. Talia, good. They were delegates because back then it was very clear, Sammy, as to which house was supposed to be which one. The delegates, what's another way to describe a delegate?
Monkeys.
Yeah, trained monkeys. I'm telling you, I'm delegating, Hunter, to you to write this down. I'm dictating to you. So forth and so on, write this to all of the patrons of my estate. And you are sitting there and you're writing down all of those materials. I'm telling you exactly, word for word, what to say. Is he thinking for himself? Not really. I mean, he's trying to do a good job, right? He's trying to follow through and listen. But the delegates follow exactly what the people say and aren't really thinking for themselves. So yes, Talia, the House in 1791 were all delegates. The Senate in 1791 was all considered what? Trustees. Again, what's that definition of trustees? Wise village leaders, right? These guys, Paige, I'm selecting you, and use the analogy here. I think for the school here, Green Canyon, what would fit well?
Where, how do they spell trustee?
Like trust.
Like our booster club?
EES. EES, yeah.
Or like the Board of Education. Or the PTSA.
I like where you're going with this. Yeah. Like,
Or
because
what's the
The difference between the delegate and trustees here, even within the school.
The teachers union, would that work?
It could, yeah. I'm trying to, because all of the the community council, right? Those are ones that fit that mold. So, Livy, ambassadors, exec leaders, etc. Does everybody work exclusively with Gordon Geddes, or is it also with Bird?
It's also Bird. The ambassadors, Bird is our advisor.
Okay. So they do the separate things there. Okay, this might be a better example. Captains who are voted in for volleyball. Let's look at volleyball here. Do you guys have captains who are voted in?
It's us.
So, hey, perfect example here. Okay, so traditionally a sports athletic captain is voted in by the other student competitors, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, meaning it's not going to be chosen by like an administrator or principal or whatever like that, right? So you guys who are voted in as captains by the other athletes, be honest with me, does the coach let you have control over schematics and strategies for upcoming matches? You're more of which one then? Delegate or trustee? Delegate, right? Because you're sort of representing those groups that have voted you in, right?
Go plan this party. I'll just.
And it's exactly. I mean, it doesn't mean that the House members or captains are diminished in responsibility, but it is. It's like, hey, I'm the coach. Yeah, Tyler, I'm leader. I'll give you some power. Can you help get like this, the sportsmanship, the camaraderie on the team, that the team's feeling well? Can you go plan like an evening dinner? But beyond that, it's not like, hey, sit down with me and like plan out our whole strategy for this whole match and how we're going to play and who's the starting and who we're going to sub in and out. Like, that's not right. Whereas Skyview back in the day on the debate program, I'll say debate, that's all I know. This is before Green Canyon, Skyview and stuff split. Skyview is known for having like the leaders, like under Miss Coons, they made probably 80% of the decisions. Strategies, starting, who is in, who is out, not just captains.
I'm so sorry, that's how it is this year.
So,
Like, the new coach doesn't do anything with practice.
and there you go.
He does that.
So that's why, and there's the advantages of it is he is interpreting because he actually was an assistant back in the day when Skyview was there. That's the exact model. That's exactly.
The secret to Gordon Peter. We have uncovered it.
No, it's not from the
No, I don't know if that because I didn't embody that model as much. I did.
No, but like what I'm saying is you didn't do that as much, and a lot of teams do that. Like a lot of
It could
different
be,
programs do
and
that.
there could be pros and cons to it. But Maisie, I think you're not seeing it incorrectly. I'm going to empower. So those captains in that situation, are they going to be delegate or trustees? Trustees, for better or worse. It's like I'm trusting you, and not just Tyler. You got to do the party, but I'm going to trust you to come up with some of the strategies and to personally go over all of the speeches and to make sure that they're compliant with what we're hoping to do. And that's a lot of power. That's a lot of power. So there's that difference between trustees, and it's stressful too, and constant meetings and rounding about to make sure that we're on the right page. The students having that much power is good and bad. I don't know, Libby, maybe you would want to be like, yeah, I don't trust the coach, I want to do it myself. Maybe that captain position you'd rather be a trustee. But these are the differences. Is that how it is now in the U.S., the House and the Senate? Or is the House exclusively delegates and the Senate exclusively trustees? No. Okay, for 10 points. What happened? You guys know this. We actually had this on the test. What was different? That changed from 1791, that original recipe. Hint, hint. Well, media can put more exposure and make them do different things. That's true. But there's something even more of a smoking gun that changed it from 1791 to 2020. What happened historically that changed the original recipe of our Constitution, if you will, to the current recipe? Something happened.
I like have an idea, but I don't.
Something happened. It was in the test review from Unit 1 where Ethan, it changed where people were expecting the House to be like, oh, we're electing you in. You're an exact mirror replica of what we're doing. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey with no attitude. You follow exactly. Senate, was the Senate voted in by the people? No. State legislatures voted in the Senate. So they, not just media, Maisie, but senators could act as they wished and they weren't held as accountable, right? So state legislatures voted in there. So we got to clearly say, you, sir, are a trustee. We're trusting you, 6 years. State's going to choose you, not the people. And you, House member, are going to be a delegate. We are electing you every 2 years, all 435, and we are telling you exactly what to do. But then something happened that just changed it all up. Now we have no way to reckon. Sammy, it could be this mode, it could be that mode, we have no clue. Does anybody know what happened? So, I don't know if somebody said something. Sarah's looking it up.
No, yeah.
Yes.
Is it FDR?
Nope. Nope, happened prior to FDR. About 15 years prior to FDR. Happened in the era of progressivism, where they wanted to change things. 17th Amendment. That's exactly it. 17th Amendment, 10 points. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I think it should be 7.
8, 9, 10. I like this sort of symmetry, but I don't know. And Sammy's got her little note cards there. I love it.
Yeah,
Is that-
she's like, she leans over, it pays out. Wow.
I tell you what, I will give another point because that's an awesome point.
What about the other 6?
Hey, God, come on. When we get to the 22nd and 25th Amendment, it's not going to be good. If you guys are pushing me for like 27 points.
Where's that average up? Average what? Through the roof.
I think as a freshman and sophomore, I was like, the bullying was there. But as a senior, I feel like you're more mature with it. That he bullies me, but it's also in helping the class too.
No, you bullied you like a kindergartner in World Civ freshman.
I love World Civ.
That freshman year, man, you guys was, oh my
It's
gosh.
so hard. I feel so bad. I'm surprised you didn't quit that year. Like, if that didn't just
Woo!
nothing.
No, do you remember when he didn't show up for like 2 weeks and we
I was so
legit
good
thought
freshman
he-
year.
we were like, we've ended it. Well, he's done. But it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Model student.
model student, other than the video. Yes. So I guess comparing Maisie to that, I'll take it. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
Terry was kind of
It's
class.
awesome.
That was a pretty good class.
Woo, it was
That
good.
the same. Like,
It was.
Let those other
Kept me on my toes. Okay. So, Sammy, yes, you're right on that. The 17th Amendment changed it, guys. Hint on the test. If there were maybe a question that Ellie were to ask, like, describe delegate, describe trustee, and what happened where it changed it up. It'd be the 17th Amendment, right? Because Hunter, we now can't predict if Obamacare is a perfect example. 2010, when that was passed, there were a couple representatives from Mississippi who they went and they decided we're going to vote for Obamacare. Now, did their constituents want them to do that? No, if they were delegates, then they'd be like, no, we're not going to vote for it. But they voted for it anyway. And when asked, and yes, Maisie, when the media pressed them, said, why did you vote for this? And they responded, I have to use my own intellect to make decisions that I think are good for my people and my constituents and my country. And the constituents are saying what?
Why'd you do that?
Why'd you do that, right? And then they got voted out. On the flip side, there were senators who voted for Obamacare
Right, Hunter.
who later on were grilled like, why did you vote for Obamacare? This is such a bad idea. And the senators responded, well, you directly wanted me to vote for it. I mean, I didn't like it at all, but I just followed what you guys had to say. Do you now see how it's super hard to hold congressmen and women accountable? Because they can flip up and say, well, I was acting as a trustee. I had to use my own intellect. You got to trust me on these matters. And then when they want to get wiggled out of the situation, they say, well, I was just following what you had to say. It's much easier if you had the House being the delegates and the Senate being the trustees, but now it's gobbledygook. They're all together. Kennedy, does that make a little more sense on the delegate, trustee, and now they can both be it all? Why?
The 17th Amendment.
Which allowed for what? Especially like, I don't know, Sammy says that. He got rid of that, right? So now the Senate and the House are both voted in by the people. And so Sarah, it's like I can't hold you accountable anymore.
Why don't they switch it back? Bad?
Many political scientists believe that the death of federalism happened with the 17th Amendment and the 16th Amendment. And they would say, the Heritage Foundation, for instance, would say that we need to revert back to make it better. They would. They absolutely would.
The freshman football players to load their bus.
And I think also there was the problem, Sarah, if this is the same era where they passed the Prohibition Amendment, right? And they redid that. They had that undone, if you will. And so they said, Sarah, we should do the same thing for this amendment so that state legislatures would vote in senators as well. But I think...
Wait, are state legislators voting by the people?
Yes. So you could...
So indirectly you're voting for the Senate.
Like back in the day, yeah. But they felt it was so corrupt with those state legislatures that they just wanted to cut the middleman out and just have people vote for the senators as well. But that's created problems where we're trying to hold senators and House members accountable, but they just keep flip-flopping on how they're representing us. Does that, Esther, does that make sense? Yeah, Maisie?
So, this is a random question.
Yeah.
But what do the political scientists do? Like, do they like look at statistics or like
Yeah.
psychology?
So
What?
there's two realms of it. I love, yes.
Oh, okay.
I love how you said that, statistics or psychology. Political science has a very harsh divide in that realm. There's the political angle of it, right, where they see themselves as psychologists. They see themselves as sociologists. Yeah, they look at culture and trends. They don't look at numbers as much. They look at like political philosophy, and they try to say like, yeah, human behavior is this way, and they're wearing togas, and they're like,
Are
to
there
be or
people that
not to
say
be.
They vote for this person because of this.
And say that one more time.
Are there people that are like, this person's gonna vote this person because of this trait?
But based on their own instinct as to how they're predicting things happen.
Yeah.
Whereas the other side with statistics, it's completely disconnected from emotion. These guys are scientists who look at data and polling data and surveys and try to predict things based on astronomers versus astrologers. That's the two divides. Does that analogy make sense within political science?
So then you just take both sides, then you can kind of figure out.
Yeah,
what's
like,
going on.
whereas you look at the philosophy, the angle of John Locke and Jefferson, that whole philosophy angle is really cool. Like, all men are created equal. He didn't find that statement by like surveying and data and statistical regressions and stuff. He didn't find that out. He looked at philosophers and said, this sounds good. But then Hamilton looked at some of the data and said, well, we have to also control the economics of our country. Let's look at the numbers we have here compared to the debt we have. And that's where they did the science part of it. So the two don't get along. They don't get along at all.
Yeah.
There's the toga wearers and there's like the dweebs and statisticians, you know. That's a really good question. So people, what do they do with political science? That's what they do. And the best application of that is to work for the State Department, where you go and you give advice, whereas like administration says, there's a war in United Arab Emirates. What do I do? And Esther and all of her buds say, okay, let's look at the data, let's philosophize a bit, come up with a policy point, and this is what you should do. Based on data or prediction of human emotion, that's what political scientists do. Does that make sense? That's a real...
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because on one end you're like, you guys wearing togas, and the greatest parts of psychology, you know, like if you had Geddes before, it's like when he teaches psychology, it's like that's what political science is. The other half is Miss Kevy's class. Or wait, who teaches stats? Miss Kevy, yeah. Yeah, so like it's those two. Or I'm thinking maybe AP stat. Or maybe stat 1010.
Cabby teaches that.
Okay, so great question there, Maisie. So you have this new section of notes, and it is Monday, and I hope you guys have a great 4-day weekend, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hope that's good for you. Yes, Spencer's excited. On the topic of executive, and it's so appropriate because like the elections and stuff are all happening now too, though we talked a lot about it. Yes, Charlie. Here you go. Under requirements, you're going to have two sections here. So, Livy, you're going to have the top half be labeled formal requirements. All right, so underneath requirements there, right? The top half of it, you're going to have formal. And Lucas, you're going to go down from that. And the second half, you'll entitle informal. Right? Like different types of dance. There's the formal. People have cummerbunds and bow ties, and they look so fancy. Or the informal, where they're just wearing like a weird white beater t-shirt.
That's a thing.
Oh,
That's
nice.
actually a thing.
Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you go there and you're like, oh, that's a mesh tank top. Well, all right, we're going that way then. Let's
At the formal dance.
You know, like,
Why are they doing that? Why are they doing
Dude,
that?
I'm so pissed. I'm like, if we're gonna do it twice, then you're doing it Tuesday.
Why didn't they do Weston? I thought it would have been so cute.
We've done
Would've
sweatshirts
been
and
so
what?
cute.
We're all sweating. It's our freaking face off.
This is
I
why.
thought it would be so. I know.
Sean does.
But
I thought it was.
Yes.
I wanted that so
Daniel-
bad.
It's because they're the trustees, not the delegates.
or yeah, right. Like there's only
It's
so
all
much
the
power.
moms. The moms literally voted on it before the homecoming
Like
game
who
was even
the
over.
freak chooses sweatshirts for a day?
Hey.
All the moms.
But let's go with this, Talia. The idea of choosing the informal or formal. These like unspoken rules is we're gonna get to that in the informal thing. Like baseball. I think we have some baseball fans in here, maybe.
A lot of baseball.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, the unwritten rules of baseball, right? The unwritten rules.
Or golf. The unwritten rules
Golf,
of golf.
yes.
Just
Oh,
golf.
hey. I'm giving some points to your class alone from what the Baldwin name is done for the golf team. It was 4th at state, right?
Yeah, but it was more Ken Blotter and Jace Blotter and the actual players.
They're ballers.
Well, I'll give some points still. We'll give some residual points. Okay, so
He's okay.
formal.
I like him too much.
But we played them.
Most of the time.
The formal requirements, meaning like this is in the Constitution. For you to be president, you have to have these several things. For some points, start tossing
45
some
years old.
idea. So age, okay, so your age has to be a certain one, and
You have to
you.
be a
U.S.
born in the U.S.
Born in the U.S.
Okay,
and
let's first. I'll get to the first thing. Age. What is the age that you have?
45, right?
35.
Is it 35?
The young ones are
Oh, I thought it
45,
was-
but the minimum is 35. Yes.
Let's do it.
First thing we write down,
Spencer, you're
guys,
a VP. Let's
is
go.
35 years old.
Actually, I have a better chance of having a girl VP. Liv,
30
you're my
Okay,
VP.
we will get to that actually in a second.
Right?
Guys, write down under formal requirements, Brooke, it's 35 years old.
Sure.
35.
Or the FBI director. What do you want? Okay.
Spoil system going on here. I'll get you a job. Okay, 35 years
Isn't that
old.
how it works?
Yes, it is. It is. Thank you, Jackson. Andrew Jackson. So 35 years old, absolutely. That's the minimum. Now, let's go to what Tyler was saying, 45 and so forth, for some more points. For 5 points, does anybody know who the youngest president ever elected was? Yes. Yeah, put in parentheses, JFK, youngest elected. JFK.
Also, name the youngest president shot.
He also was the cutest.
And the numbers bear that out. And Maisie, that's
why
both-
he won.
That's
Hashtag
both
TV.
with instinctual and the data.
Delectable.
Did you know that they thought his wife was a Russian spy? So they were secretly taping the private West Wing where they're
Really?
yeah. And all the tapes are now found in the Library of Congress.
He was 43 when. I'm not going to test you on it.
Okay, that's pretty young.
Like he was.
He looked like he was 26.
He was 43.
Well, what's the youngest person to run?
Okay. So here we go, guys. We had the youngest person ever elected as JFK for 5 more points. This is a more difficult one. Who was the youngest president ever to serve?
Donald Trump.
What?
Teddy Roosevelt?
Dang, congrats to your U.S. history. It's great. Okay, so you got JFK, youngest elected, TR, youngest to serve.
What
Okay.
does that mean? Like, what's the?
Yeah, I like
He wasn't elected.
the wheels turning right now. You're like, I don't.
Okay, and this is
Wait
also
a
why a
second.
president can
JFK
actually
was
serve for
murdered,
10 years,
right?
not 8
That's why.
years.
Yes.
Say it, Sarah, one more time.
JFK was murdered, and that's why he's.
Well, it wasn't that Teddy Roosevelt took over for JFK, but you're on, Sarah, the right track that the youngest to ever get elected was JFK, right? But then you're looking at somebody who's about 42 and a half. So they look at this. He was technically younger than JFK when he got into office, and it was Teddy Roosevelt. So what happened, Sam?
Was he like a vice president who took the seat?
Yes. So he was VP, and JFK wasn't the president got assassinated. But for another 5 points.
Teddy Roosevelt was 42.
Wasn't
Yes.
that one dude who was like, got pneumonia? 'Cause he-
No, not him. No, that's 5 there. For 5
Wait,
more.
what's the question?
So the question now is, because you've gotten yes JFK, you've gotten TR. My question is who was the president that was assassinated that he took over for? So TR stepped in. He was VP, but there was a president. We've actually mentioned him in this class. You've written down his name. He-
Is it
Roosevelt.
So Teddy Roosevelt.
Are you asking who took over?
I'm asking
We
for
asked
who.
the question.
For Roosevelt.
I'm asking for who was the
Okay.
president.
Who did Roosevelt take
So
over?
Teddy Roosevelt was the VP, right? And so no.
JFK.
No, Teddy Roosevelt was the VP. He was a young guy. He was from New York. The Republican Party said, we're going to put you on the ticket here because you've got a weird smile and you're pretty popular and you're young, to help balance the ticket because the guy who is the president is like super old. He is your stereo. What? William McKinley. McKinley. Very good. Very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, Talia, you had in 1896 McKinley. You guys remember that election we talked about? It was important because Jennings Bryan. Yes, got the stump speeches and stuff, right? Now Jennings Bryan lost it, but you had Spencer McKinley win, and they had to balance the ticket. And you were saying, Tyler, before, like, I got to have a female on the ticket. Even back then, they knew they had to balance the ticket. McKinley was the stereotypical old white dude.
Spencer McKinley.
No, William.
William McKinley. Yep, he
I don't know why I
wins.
got Spencer.
I said Spencer. That's okay too.
Yeah, but you said
William
Spencer.
McKinley
You
was
already
elected,
served
but Sarah, to balance
You've
the
already served
ticket,
as president.
the Republican Party said, meaning Joe Biden did not really choose Kamala Harris as his running mate. We're going back to what Esther is like cringing at here. The strategies of the parties, they choose. Trump did not choose Pence willingly. Pence was seen as the balancing guy for Trump. They're both like old white dudes, I get that. But their characteristics are very much balancing, right? So they look at Kamala and they say, okay, Democratic Party, we like her because A, she's female, B, she is a minority, both Indian American and African American.
She actually knows how to give a speech.
And she is more coherent, yes, and consistent in her style than Biden, and the age thing can sort of balance the ticket. So they went with Teddy Roosevelt, who was a super young guy, and he was like just more gregarious and open and loud. He was outdoorsy, he was. And they thought this is going to balance a guy who's old, white dude smoking cigars on his porch named William McKinley. So they put that together, never thinking that he would actually ever be president because he had like no political experience. And then McKinley is shot at the World's Fair in Buffalo. The sprawling metropolis of Buffalo, New York.
I've been there.
The Bills.
You've actually been to Buffalo. and you-
That's a point.
I
Give her a
flew
point for
into
that.
Buffalo and they had the
Why were you? I got.
the
What?
marine ship place, and we went there on the dock.
Give her a
It
point.
was
Interesting.
So cool.
Point.
Was that like
Buffalo,
going
New
through
York.
to somewhere else, or was it like a purposeful
We landed
destination?
our airplane in Buffalo. And
Her private airplane. They
Oh,
landed in
ooh,
Buffalo.
fancy.
Well,
Yeah.
no, not our airplane. It was like Delta or something.
But you landed in Buffalo. I mean, because Buffalo's somewhere out of the place, but they had the World's Fair there. And he was shot by a crazy dude. McKinley was talking at podium, was like, I'm white, I'm Republican, let's
Why
have
didn't
lower
someone
taxes.
just shoot Trump?
And so, this is crazy to me, Talia, that we haven't.
Because there's
our
this
world
thing
is
called the
crazy.
Secret Service.
Secret Service. I would dare say that there have been more assassination attempts for Obama and Trump than we've had for previous presidents, probably because of the extremism we find on both sides of it.
Wait, there's been
Not like
attempts?
as much. Like
I think-
Yeah, there's.
Yeah, that was that guy from Logan.
Yeah.
Who, like,
I think the
said bombs in
copycats,
the-
Talia,
Yeah.
I think we don't hear about it because there's the
All of a
fear,
sudden, me and my
like the
dad are
suicide
driving down the
attempts, like
street.
we don't want to glamorize it, right?
SWAT car
I think we
pulls
just
up, we're
don't
like,
hear about it because they're trying to tamper it down and make sure, like, or dampen it down.
It seems like the media would be like on top of that.
Yeah, but the Secret Service, there's such a secrecy.
Yeah,
like,
I think
if
so.
anyone leaks, like,
I
there's
do.
penalty by death.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Consequence.
So Talia, I believe there have it. I really do. Probably even more so.
Scary.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
couldn't go anywhere.
Like-
Everyone knows who you are.
Totally.
Half the world hates you.
Well, we can say half the
I
country.
mean, country, sorry.
Yeah. No, but it's the extremism for sides. It probably have had more assassination attempts. The vitriol for Obama when he was reelected in 2012, especially in states like Utah. I mean, the number of people were like, secede from the union, right? Were very much
People
harsh against
literally
Obama.
said that?
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you. I remember 2012 kids coming in and they had like stuff they printed off online like, we can secede from the union, it's allowable. And I'm like, oh jeez.
They brought some.
Welcome to U.S. history, kids. Let's talk about
That's
it.
so funny.
They did. They really believed it. But on the same token, Sarah, in 2016, I had people coming in tears thinking that they were all going to get deported when Trump was elected. And I just sit down and be like, guys, no, that's not how this works.
Did they really?
They totally did.
That's
Tears
so sad.
coming in
That
down the
is
face.
so sad.
Meaning, going back to what Talia and Maisie were saying, the extremism is there. I think the vitriol is there, probably more than we had with George W. Bush or Bill Clinton even.
Which is that also like with the divide, like politically?
Yeah, absolutely. That divide. There is that national.
Because you
Secret
can't be
Service. I
neutral
love the
anymore.
Secret Service. I know probably.
Sorry,
everyone
what?
in
It's
the
because you
Secret
can't be neutral anymore. You have to
It's
either
hard.
be
Service.
like
And Air Force One.
far right or far
Nuance.
left, and if you're in
Nuance.
the middle,
It
you're
is my
hated
bucket
by
list.
Absolutely.
To be on that plane.
But
While it's Air
JFK,
Force
youngest
One.
elected, TR, youngest to serve, because Sophie, I hope that makes sense of, oh, he's VP, he took over, right? But then the whole Taft Association happened, where like Taft sort of usurped TR later on, if you remember from U.S. history, and Teddy Roosevelt left the Republican Party because his ideas were different. It was the Bull Moose Party, and he left. Sammy?
Would Texas be technically allowed to?
The only slim, super attenuated, string has been pulled from miles and miles apart state that has any argument for secession would maybe be Texas, because it was, right? You've read some things online. That's not completely removed from reality. The problem is once we annex a state in the Constitution, there is no mechanism, unlike other countries, for secession or Brexit type leaving. There's nothing in there. So that's what constitutionally
What if they
Lincoln,
just decided they all wanted to leave? What would they do?
a civil war. Meaning
We'd send
Meaning
them to
the
mass
president,
generation.
would have to say, okay, Lincoln made that stand. Like, Lincoln could have said,
Okay.
all right, yeah, like he could have. He could have said, look, we're done. I know it's not in the
No.
Constitution, but we're just sort of going to let it happen. But he took the stance of, we will always call you rebels, we'll never call you Confederates, because that would acknowledge them as a country. And in the Constitution, it has no mechanism to leave the Union. And so though Texas was a republic, Sammy, Lincoln said, we're going to keep them in. We're going to call them rebels, yeah. But they could make the claim that they were a republic before, so maybe. But that's the closest thing you get to it. Even then, it's not likely, right? Good, very good question. Okay, so we've got 35 years of age. Now work backwards here. The Senate, what is that minimum age for the Senate? 30, yep. Can you got it? Yeah. That's some deductively thinking. Okay, what's the minimum age for the House?
Okay, but did you know that the Secret does?
So remember the president is 35 or minimum. We've got the Senate, which is 30, and the House is
25.
25. Yep.
That's so young. Like, I was gonna say 25 for the other, but I was like, that's really young.
But they do
So
set
that
up
when you
the
get the
House, which
genius
is trained
mind
monkeys,
beast,
you
they
could
can
be
just get
25.
the system.
That's young.
I think
Yeah.
that's like me in like 7 years.
Do you guys absolutely?
Yeah, but
you guys-
Sarah, you're smarter than most people in office now, let alone in 7 years. Like,
You are assuming that, good old Tally, you're assuming that only
people think
Smart
logically.
people get elected.
only about 15% of those currently in the U.S. Senate and the House have actually read the Constitution more than 3 times in their life. Oh wait, that is an actual fact. Yeah, maybe we should run. 25 is the minimum age for the House. Now we have had somebody who's younger than 25, who was actually 22, and the state was like, meh, we'll let it happen. I love that. They're like, yeah.
Wait, who was that?
This is at the original, like they were talking
Against California.
1792, like really early in our country.
Oh, back in
They-
the day, they
yeah.
were smart at like 12.
They were, or like, we're gonna die when
Now
we're
we're like
30.
really dumb.
But the House just
Yeah.
right. But the House is 25. Somebody who guessed correctly, Senate, yes, 30 is Senate. House is 25. The president is 35. Why, guys? Why is this formally in the Constitution that thou shalt be 35 or older for to be president?
Like that.
They didn't say it that way. But why is it formally though? Why? Any thoughts?
Is it because like they could run for like the House and the Senate before, and like they
like
get experience before like going in? Because like be like, yeah, I'm 18, I'm running this year. I don't know crap. So,
Right.
And most people don't.
It-
so
Okay, so
I'll clean this up. I'll clean it up.
Me-
So let me explain just what Kenny was saying first. You are right to assume, hence the points, that like it sort of sets up the presidency, right? You get some experience in the House and the Senate, and maybe run for president. There is some angle of like that stepping hierarchy, if you will.
or like other like I don't know what they do. Like what do presidents do before they're presidents? Like, 'cause they always do, like, it's like something up there, like fancy. And
We'll get to it under informal requirements, but traditionally, Kennedy, they're either having some political experience in the House or Senate, or governor. A governor of either a swing state, I keep going back to Sophie, a governor of a swing state, yeah. Or a governor, usually in the past has had the best outcome versus a military general. Like Eisenhower, our generals have not been very successful. I know Washington, et cetera, I get that. But most of the generals elected to be president have not had good presidencies. So the ones that have had success have been executors, right, over a state. Usually a swing state, usually a big state. Think Reagan, think George W. Bush, right? Think even Clinton. So that's either a governor of a state or a senator. That's usually the experience that presidential candidates have, right? But that's informal, that's not required. So yeah, they want to encourage him, maybe. Do you guys think people who are older are smarter? This is no right or wrong answer, I'm just
More
throwing it out there.
experience in life, they're wiser. Dumber.
Spencer, I think that's what the founders are trying to get at. Like if we set that age limit there, but at the same time, I know you guys met old people who are like dumb as
And also that they can't
dumb.
keep up with the times sometimes.
Right, like there are exceptions. I think they're assuming you're older and therefore your prefrontal cortex is more developed and you're not as impetuous. But Lucas might be making the connections that doesn't always hold for those who are older. Yes, Ellen?
I also kind of think, like, I mean, this is kind of a generalization, but
Yeah.
a lot of older people are less likely to make change happen.
Yes.
And so, like, I mean, having a younger president or a younger
Yep.
person running they'd probably bring new ideas, fresher
Very good.
perspective, and more motivation to actually get stuff done than
And-
someone who's older.
So okay, so for 5 more points, why would our founders say, yes, if they're younger, they'll get more stuff done? No, let's make them older. Why did they specifically, Ellie, say, we don't
So
want
they
them
have
to bring
experience.
stuff in? Why? Any
So
thoughts?
They have experience and know where they're supposed, know what they're
Because they
supposed
don't
to
trust the future generations to make changes to the country that they created.
I think they're skeptical on young people to make bad changes. We want them to have experience, but think very cynically as this founding father who just left good old jolly England. Do you want government to do crap?
Not really.
No. You want them to stay in their lane, let you do you, and only help out a little bit for military and taxes. That's it, bye-bye. That's it. That's a very American sentiment. So it's like, so wait, you want people who don't do a lot because they just, I think there's some truth to it. Maisie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I heard this or if I just made it up, but are like older politicians like less likely to like base their decisions off of morals?
So going back to this, we know that traditionally, as Thomas Jefferson said, today's liberals are tomorrow's conservatives. That when you're younger, you're more open for change, right? And your moral code is a little bit more wide and more of a spectrum. We've seen that through instinct, but also data. We've seen that. So the question is will older politicians be more open to change? Usually
I know, like,
not.
older people are racist. I'm just gonna be straight up. Like that's just how they were raised. But I don't know if that's like always like been a trend.
That is a trend both on the instinctual side of political science, but also in survey data. Meaning those who are older are less likely, as Ellie was saying, to do change and open things up. They are going to be more conservative.
And like less perceptive to like ideas.
Yes, that doesn't mean that they are necessarily racist, but I understand the idea of different moral codes are very
That's
narrow.
how culture's been forever. Like I'm just gonna be straight up. Like
It's
old
totally
people
fair.
are racist and they're going to be till the day they die. Like,
So the
Yeah,
challenge.
Deloitte Hansen.
The
I feel like part of that is because like their parents raised them.
Just
that way.
saying.
They were
I
raised-
feel like I've got to go take a
Oh my
Clorox shower right now when he said
I'm
that.
just saying, it's true. Like if I'm talking to him one-on-one, like he says stuff, and
I would-
most
yeah,
old
when I say-
people do.
We'll try again tomorrow.
I think it's
Because I-
something that, like when they were raised.
But I'm not saying Deloitte's a bad guy.
No, but-
I'm just saying
but-
that's the generation. Is like,
The assumption,
yeah.
Maisie, is when somebody says something more abrasive or curt, and I'll fall into this trap too, where it's not even about the age thing of just my own exposure and experience. Like, I was one of only a handful of whites in my high school growing up, so like, I went to American Methodist Episcopal churches with all my black buddies, and like, we just went, like, that's how I was. But when I mention things of that nature, my sensitivity isn't there on point as maybe is there for a younger generation. Even if I'm not intending to be
Okay,
racist, it
question.
seems more harsh.
I have a
But,
question.
like
but
our country's becoming more diverse too. Like
Yes,
before, like,
yes.
Like there used
Well,
Touch
we're-
Valley not so much, but like other states, like,
Yeah.
there used to be no black people and there's now.
But I want to say, Maisie, that yes, your instinct of are they a little less susceptible to change when they're older? Yes, they are. Like they're usually less open to change as they get older because that's a human nature sociological thing that happens. Yeah, there's exceptions to it. But yeah, does that answer your question? Like to confirm it, you're not.
I don't know if I came up with that or if I heard that.
But I will give this lovely statement from Mark Twain. All right, he said, "All generalizations aren't worth a damn, including this one." Meaning, yes, you can make some broad strokes, but there are exceptions to that, right? Yeah.
Okay, so Maisie just said our country's becoming more diverse or something like that, but then I tuned out for just a second. So
yes, yeah.
Except for Cache Valley.
But we're becoming more diverse. But how are we becoming more diverse, but then more sensitive to that at the same time? Because personally, I don't really get offended very easily.
Yeah.
But if somebody's attacking my family or friends, oh man, watch out, kind of thing, right?
Understandable.
But so why is it that, or one of my coaches, so why is it that we have so many more people becoming so much more sensitive? Is it just because they feel like they know people? And
I will say this, and then I do want to shift back onto the formal requirements of the presidency. It's a very good question, and some could say it as Maisie, I can see why that would happen. It could also be ironic of that's interesting it's happening. The country they project, ethicists do, by about 2060, that the majority, in 2080 maybe, the majority of our country will be made up of minorities, meaning the plurality, 40% of the country at that point, will be Anglo-Saxon, Western European white, but the majority of the country will be made up of other minorities, right? And so those numbers are showing very true. The minorities are getting, in terms of numbers and more prevalent in general, yes. But the cultural sensitivities are also going up. So one angle could be said, well, I just expected people having more exposure to it would have a little thicker skin of being like, hey, we're all in this together, can we get past that, right? The other angle, though, that you're seeing this year especially is, I as a minority have felt so repressed and pushed down for so long that now that my group is being a little more recognized, please hear my voice. And I've been pushed aside for so long. So they're saying, I'm wanting you to be more sensitive on the issue. I think that's what's happening here, where we've had more diversity for the country and groups are getting bigger and they're saying, hear my voice. And you could say, we have, and why are you being so aggressive against me? But they're so repressed. Have you guys, maybe you guys have fasted either for surgery or for religious reasons, and you see that hamburger after the 24-hour fast and you're like, game on, Donkey Kong. We're doing this thing, right? I think minority groups could feel so repressed and I haven't been able to be out there and hear my voice heard, and now I'm just right. And you're like, whoa, calm down, bro. Don't eat that 8-pound burger right now. It's I need to. There's a little bit of over maybe reaction and sensitivity, but if you're a minority and you feel repressed, I guess this is the time to get more out there. So does that idea make sense of why the sensitivity is going to happen?
It makes no sense to me because if you look, so Deloy Hansen, for example, he's put more money into Cache Valley, into those minority programs and equal rights programs, and I know with North Logan alone, anyone who feels like they can't pay, he pays for that, right? With their soccer programs or baseball programs or basketball or whatever it may be, he pays for that kid to be able to participate. So why is it justified for one off-the-cuff comment on a radio show that he didn't know he was being recorded on, he thought it was on commercial, ruin his entire reputation, and in the state of Utah in the Valley with the national soccer, whatever it may be, how can all that just be totally washed away?
The cancel culture and the disproportionate response that happens reared its head.
To me, it's kind of almost the same thing as a coach. A coach says one wrong thing to a player,
it can happen.
They're done. You know what I mean?
The wrong timing and is there an ounce of injustice in there? Yes. Does the lawyer regret in and of itself what he said? Yeah, forget the other consequences. Probably. Would the coach regret what they say? He was just upset at the timing of them taking for the Jacob Blake shooting for the RSL group to not compete on a day that he had gotten community members to actually come to the first game in like the whole year. And so he was saying he felt stabbed in the back. That wording sounded really tone deaf compared to Jacob Blake shooting.
Right.
Even though, like, is it proportionate for him to be forced to sell his teams? I don't think so. But the court of public opinion said it was.
It's like, well, no doubt would he be upset. Like, he's been trying, like, all these owners would be, are upset because they can't have fans in their stands anyway. And finally, he goes through the health department, gets everything approved, has people come in, and then all of a sudden he's stabbing back by his team because they won't play. And so I don't know. Like, I would feel really betrayed.
The irony of more diversity, but also increased sensitivity, is real. I think if we can have, as Sarah was saying, just more nuance to it, right? Like more nuance to saying, hey, Deloitte sort of messed up from saying it that way. I think you meant something different, right? As opposed to off with her head, let's get some pitchforks and torches. Trey, did I see your hand up?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, Trey,
I mean, I was just going to say something along the lines that, I mean, it's, we're in Utah and we're in a room full of mostly white people. I mean, we don't really understand what it feels like. And
that's true too.
And like with the fasting thing,
it's a good way
we all know we're going to eat that burger. I mean,
interesting.
If you've been discriminated against for that long, and then finally when you have a voice,
that opening,
when you have this chance, I feel like you're just gonna take it like a ravenous beast. I mean, who wouldn't? Like,
it's true. And I hope what you'd hope ideally in that discussion is say, hey, like, slow down the burger. You are right that you have not eaten, and you need to eat, so to speak, figuratively. Can we be reasonable in this? And I can hear what you're saying too. That type of nuance seems gone. I like that analogy of when you don't know if you'll be able to eat ravenously, they'll go at it. Real quick, we'll go Ellie and Maisie. Ellie.
Okay, so I think that's kind of the problem with this whole like movement and everything. It's so controversial, even though it really shouldn't be.
Right.
The Black Lives Matter movement is controversial, I think, because I mean, I have cousins personally that have had to have talks like, okay, when you talk to a police officer, you completely obey everything that they say.
Yeah.
Like, my aunt's had to talk with all three of her kids about it because she knows that not all cops, I don't think, are like that, but there are some, for sure, that have been known to discriminate. But I think that in some cases, like what Tyler was saying, I think that's totally, like, I think that's wrong to, like, completely go off of, like make it Deloitte's entire career.
Right.
I just think at some level, the sensitivity makes it way more controversial, but really it's all like everyone just
There is that, I like that even hand gesture of like,
it's just coming together.
yes, it's legitimate, and Trey, right, there's some real things. Can we match each other's proportional responses? Mason.
I also think, I know Americans get offended by everything. Like, we just love, I think we're so entitled that we just get offended by the smallest things, because everything needs to go our way. Like, even the school systems, like, we get participation medals for really nothing.
It's,
like,
I hate participation.
it's,
the
the sensitivities are there. I think that's fair too of the rage police that happens, and you're like, I'm outraged. You're like, are you really outraged? So we're not doing a boy who cried wolf, so we can like really identify what the issues are.
Like my European friends says the most offensive stuff, and then it like gets confused when people get offended by it. Like,
I think there is some fairness.
It's not offensive. Like,
Correct.
I
would agree. But guys, let me say this. Hey guys, let me say this real quick. So for formal requirements, we know that the age 35. Maybe they're older, so they're a little more experienced. You know,
they have to pass a background check.
We don't. We don't want them to be too open to change. Guys, your homework tonight is thinking of the other formal, constitutionally required things a president has. You may need to write it down. Just think about it. We'll get to it tomorrow.
Sorry to get off on that tangent. It's just like so frustrating.
You know, Tyler, I thought long and hard this past weekend. I know we go at a glacial pace here. I know, Esther, it's like a snail on top of a glacier on top of a turtle. We go so slow. But you guys, this is probably one of the most like engaged, wanting to know for the right reasons classes. So I sort of threw my hands up, like, let's get through this, but if you're learning, then that's what I want to help with. So So you're okay. You're okay, and that's fine. And thanks for coming.
I had to do the college application.
Oh, got it.
The U took forever.
That's good. I will mark you as here for that.
Yeah, like mine took so long that the lady that was supposed to like come that stayed left with other people.
Wow. Okay.
She was just like write me
So there's that. We're just on, and the notes will be online so you can see them there. But it's just the one part that we got to.